Hey dudes, name's Rittman, Matt Rittman, and today I'm going to show you how to create a laser beam and take that laser beam and etch a logo into a piece of metal. So you can etch anything, your logo, some text, anything you want. So this is what I did in mine, and I apologize for the slow frame rate here. I'm not on the fastest machine in the world. So we've got some sparks, a little bit of smoke. That was done in After Effects. So we'll go ahead and create the etching effect first in Cinema 4D, and we'll take that um, into After Effects and create the smoke and the sparks. So with that, the first thing we need to do is pull up our logo. And mine is in Adobe Illustrator, or some people call it Illustrator, but I don't really know what the real name is. Anyway, so we got our logo here, and I work for a company called DZ. So I etched just the white part of the logo in the piece of metal. And one thing you kind of want to make sure of when you got your logo here is that it's clean. All your points, you got a minimum amount of points, just enough to get your logo. You don't want any stray points, and you got a closed path. So you got your logo. First thing you need to do, um, in my case, I'm going to copy the words DZ to my clipboard, and then I'm going to fire up Photoshop. So we'll just come over here and just create a new file, new document. And it's already got the width and the height in because we copied it to the clipboard. So hit OK. And go ahead and paste in your logo. And we want to paste it as a path. Okay, so hit OK. And there you can see it. I'm going to go ahead and hide in the background. Well, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, now what we want to do is export this path to Illustrator. It's kind of weird going back and forth, but this is what you got to do. So File, Export, Paths to Illustrator, or Illustrator, excuse me. Work path, OK. And we'll just save it to the desktop, logo.ai. Here we go, here it is. Okay, you can close out of Photoshop. Won't be needed that anymore. We can close out Illustrator too. Just make my machine a little bit faster. I'm not on a fast computer, folks. Okay, now go ahead and come over to Cinema. Alright, so we got our Cinema up. Now, go ahead and just open up our logo that we saved to the desktop. Alright, okay, and we got the Adobe Illustrator import dialog box. Everything looks good here. Make sure Connect Splines is disabled and Group Splines is checked. Okay. And you'll see that it is grouped under a null called logo. Okay. And here we have it. And we've got 5 paths here because there's 5 separate paths. Path 5 is the D part of the D, the inside of it. You can actually just drag this out and down. Yeah, we can actually take all these paths out of the null object. We don't need them grouped under a null, and you can delete the null. And just to kind of keep organized, we're going to rename these paths and put them in the right order, just to keep it easy. So we're just going to call this one 1. We're going to call this one 2. And we're going to call the E 3. And this is the order that it's going to write onto the screen. That is why I'm doing this. So 4 and 5. Okay. And then we're going to reorder these so that it is in sequential order. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you'll see that it just goes in order. Okay. Okay. Now, next thing we want to do is as our laser comes down and etches in each letter here, we kind of have to tell it where it's going to start the path, where it's going to start writing. So in my case, I started on the top left corner of each letter here, or each spline. So for the DE, if we go over here to our point tool, you'll notice that it actually starts right here, and that's not what we want. We want it to start up here in this corner. So highlight the point and right click and select set first point. And you'll notice it starts from white and kind of fades into a dark blue. This is the direction I want to go. So the white is the start of the path and the blue is the end of the path. So that one's good to go. Number 2. This one also needs to be set a new first point. So set that. Okay, here we have a problem. You'll see that it's reversed. So it's really easy. We want it to right click and select reverse sequence. And then, I don't know why it does this, but it makes a new first point. So it puts it down here. So just select it and hit set first point. And now it's in the right direction. Okay, so number 3, same thing. You'll notice it's going in the wrong direction. So first thing we're going to do is reverse sequence. Then I'm going to hit set first point. That's correct. Okay, number 4. Yep, same thing. Reverse sequence, set first point. Okay, so that one's good to go. 5, reverse sequence, and set first point. Okay, because this is where the laser is going to start. Just a reminder. So laser starts here and goes around. Okay, next thing I want to do is just I'm just going to rotate my logo here 90 degrees, just so it's flat, or negative 90 degrees here. So our laser will come from the top and hit our logo. Okay. So now we need to make this logo actually 3D. So first thing we do is grab a sweep nerd. And then we grab an inside. And I like inside because you have more control over the amount of polygons. So I'm going to use that. Okay, group that under the sweep nerd. And then take your number 1. Well, first, let's grab the inside. And let's see here. We're going to change the radius to 6 and our number of sides to 8. Okay. And then we're just going to take our 1 and group it under the sweep nerd. And inside has to be first. Okay, so there we go. Look at that. The DE is now 3D. 3D DE. Say that 10,000 times fast. Okay, so we go over number 2. We want to make that 3D as well. So, yep, same thing. Go ahead and just create a sweeper. Sweep NURBS. Move it down. Grab an inside. 6 radius. 8 sides. Put the inside as a child of the sweep. To make this quicker, we're going to just copy this down a few times. Okay. Now this will be a lot quicker. Okay, there's that one. Put 3 in. Put 4 into this one, and we'll put 5 into this one. Sorry for all the confusion. Okay. And then I'm going to rename these again to their numbers just so it's easier to keep track. So, okay, 4, yep, 5, okay. Okay, so we've got our each part of the logo in order here. Okay. Okay, so to animate these pieces of the logo coming onto the screen, in our sweep nerd, each one of our sweep nerd, we have what's called an end growth. And you'll notice if you start pulling this back, it moves the path. It kind of builds it onto the screen, so as you increase the end growth amount. So that's what we're going to be animating here. So with that, let's start. And we want to get our keyframes all set up. So we're going to set our amount of keyframes over here to, let's just go 500. Okay, drag this over. Good. Okay, so the DE, go ahead and create a keyframe for the end growth at frame 0 by holding down Command and pressing this circle. And you'll see it's red to indicate that we've set a keyframe at frame 0. Okay, so we move her over. We're going to move it over to frame 89. 89, okay. Set a new keyframe. And you'll notice our first problem. Move the slider back to 0. We forgot to change this to 100, or to 0%. So change that to 0 and create a new keyframe. There. So now it builds onto the screen. Okay, good. Okay, so for each letter, or each spline path, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to do it one keyframe before the whole number 90. So at frame 90, the 2 is going to start animating on. So change the end growth to 0. Okay, keyframe. And for this one, we're just going to go to 139. 100. Okay, keyframe it. Yep, good. Okay, number 3. Same thing, 140. End growth 0. Keyframe it on. And we're going to put this one at 219. Okay, 100%. Keyframe it. Okay, 220. Number 4. Zip. Keyframe. This is a bigger section, so we're going to add a little more keyframeage to 319. Okay. So 100%. Keyframe. 320. Sorry for the repetitiveness here. Okay, 0. Keyframe. And now we'll just go to 400. Or, I'm sorry, 399. 100%. Okay, keyframe. So there we have it. It writes on from 0 to frame 400. And since we're only doing 400 frames, we'll just change the maximum keyframes to 400. Okay, so you'll notice it's going to write on. One problem here is that when it starts writing each letter, it starts off really slow, speeds up, and then slows down again. So watch, it'll kind of speed up and slow down. That is because our keyframes are set to I'm having a brain fart here. Let me just switch it over. Switch your layout over to animation, okay? And you'll notice over here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything that's been animated in our scene. But we need to switch our key mode to F curves. Okay, and just select all your objects. Okay, so we have these curves. It's curving because it starts slow, speeds up, and slows down again. But we want these to be linear interpolation. So just select all your. You can either hit Command A to copy it, or to select everything, and then, or you can do it by dragging and selecting all your keyframes. And then up here, just change it to linear interpolation, and then they'll be straight. Okay. So we can switch back over to our standard layout. And then if we hit play, it animates on at the same rate throughout the entire letter, or throughout the entire spline. So, all right. Okay, so now when we etch this laser on, in my animation anyway, if you look closely, you'll see that the material that I used, it starts off orange and then kind of fades back down to a gray color, just to kind of signify that it's cooling off as it etches into the metal. So to do that, let's go ahead and just create a new material. Double clicking down here. Okay, let's open up our material editor. Alright, so I'm not going to use color. For the luminance, we're going to add a luminance, and we are going to add a gradient. Okay, and then if we open up our gradient settings, we're going to create our color. So color is going to start off kind of a dark gray, and you don't have to have this perfect, just kind of get in the general area here. And then it's going to go to a yellow, and you just click here to create another color swatch. So we're going to do like a yellow here, a little bit darker. Okay, yellow. I'm going to create another one. This one's going to be an orange. I'm going to create another one. And this one's going to be red. Kind of a deeper red. And our last color is going to be back to our dark gray here. Okay. And for the type, this needs to be 2D-V. 2D-V. Okay. Alright. Then we're going to add a little bit of reflection. And to that reflection, we're going to add a Fresnel. Don't ask, just do it. I don't know why. Okay. We got our specular. Okay, we're going to add a little bit of glow. Okay. Inner strength, we're going to set that to 15. Outer strength, 25. Radius, 5 centimeters. It's not much, but it's just enough. Okay. And for our luminance channel, we might need to expand these a little further here. Okay. It should work out. Okay, so we just need to apply our material to each one of our sweep NURBS. Okay, and we'll just drag these down here. Alright. So there we have it. Okay. Now, to animate the glowing effect, we are going to set. Okay, if you click on the texture tag, we're going to animate the offset V. You'll notice that as you move the offset V, it kind of moves around, and that's what we want it to do. I'm sorry, I need to adjust the gradient. It's just not right. So, pull up our gradient. Yeah, that's our problem. This one right here should not be white. It should be dark gray, and it should be way over here. Or, yeah, just bear with me here. I'm pretty new at this. Okay, there, that's what we want. So 2 dark grays. Okay, close it out. Good, okay. Click on our texture tag. There, that's what we want. We want it to start off a yellow, kind of a yellow color. We might even shorten the yellow down so it's not quite as long. Okay, just shorten all this down. We don't want a big long streak of colors here. Okay, yep, There, that looks about right there. We're going to change the offset back to 0. Okay, so it's going to start off right here. Yep, right at 0. Okay. So one thing we need to make sure of is that when you move this offset V, we want it to stick to the UVs. So if we click on our sweep node, make sure you select stick UVs, and we're going to actually do that for all these here. So stick UVs. Okay, just do it. So okay, all right, so there we go. Let's go ahead and animate this moving around here. So offset V for this particular one. Oh yes, that's why I did the stick UVs. Sorry, I'm not explaining myself, but you'll notice when you move the timeline slider, that this color, the gradient texture, stays at the top. And if we didn't do that, so I just unselected it, it's no longer here. It'll just stay. It stays at the back, and that's not what we want. So make sure you select stick UVs. Okay. Alright, so frame 0. Select our texture tag. Create a keyframe. Okay, move it over to frame. Oh yeah, for this we actually want it to yeah, I think 0 to 89 again, and then change our offset. Create a keyframe at 89 as well. So hold on just a minute here. I think this needs to be 0. Yes. So at frame 0, offset 0. Okay, frame 89. Whoa. Frame 89. What's going on here? Yep, so keep it at 100. Got it. done. Let's see, make sure. Okay, that looks good there. In my animation, I had this texture keep moving around, so I'm not going to do that right now. It's just going to take too long. So bear with me. Okay, so but one problem I was having, I could not figure out why, is that the gradient starts off very small, and as you get to the last part of the end growth, it's really long. Couldn't figure that out, so sorry, I don't know how to fix it. Anyway, so let's move up to our next letter here. So offset 100%, keyframe it. Okay, so we're going to go around to 139, keyframe it. Okay, for the second part of the E, start at 140, select our next texture tag, change the offset to 100, keyframe, move it around to 219, okay, 100, okay, good. Alright, moving right along, 220, offset 100%, keyframe. Sorry this is so repetitive, but you're just going to have to live with it. Okay, alright, so 319, keyframe. Hold on, just a hair. I don't know why I'm setting keyframes, because it stays no matter what. Okay, anyway, I'm just going to continue because that's what I did in my animation. I don't remember why, so okay, so keyframe that, go to our end, a new keyframe. So there we have it. Ooh. It seems as if I made an error. Oh yeah. I don't know why that's at 0. Okay, so keyframe. Alright, so there we have it. We have not made our laser yet, but this is what we start with. Our logo being animated onto the screen. So, say we want a piece of metal in here. Just grab a cube. Okay, we're just going to center that with our logo here. Just kind of give it a general idea. We're going to just change the size X to, change that to, yeah, looks good there, 2133. The thickness, we're going to make it a thin piece, and our Z, just kind of, just do 850, and just to make these even, 50, and 2130. Okay, so there we have our piece of metal here. And in my animation, it looks like it's engraving, but it's really not. Mine just had it sitting just above the piece of metal. And you could actually go in here and intersect it with a Boolean, but mine wasn't working correctly, so I'm not actually going to intersect anything. Because it's so far away, it doesn't really matter. You can't see that it's really engraving in any way. So this is what we're going to do. So Got our piece of metal. I'm going to give it just a quick texture of, you know what, white's fine, just so we can see it a little better. Okay, so to create our laser, the laser needs to point at a null object. So to do that, we're going to animate a null object moving from spline to spline. So it's going to animate 5 different locations. So create a null object. Okay. All right. So we have our null. Now, go ahead and right click, and we're going to give this null object an align to spline tag. And then for the spline path, we're going to choose our first spline path. I'm just going to pull all these down so it's easier. But so at frame 0, we want spline path to be 1. Okay? And set a keyframe for the spline path at 1. So it's going to animate around. Then at frame 90, we want spline path to be 2. So drag 2 in at 90 and set a keyframe. Okay. Then animate this around. Then at 143, number 3, set a keyframe. Then at 220, sorry for the repetitiveness and the, well, just how boring my voice is. Okay, I apologize. I'm not the best tutor. I'm going to admit it. Okay, 5. Done. So as these animate onto the screen, our null object switches to each spline. See how it moves? Okay. So, let's see here. Now we want the null object to follow our path around. We have it switching to each path, but now we want it to actually follow the path as it animates on. So, to do that, you just animate the position here. So, frame 0, position 0. Okay, frame 89, position 100%. Okay, and then here is a problem. See how the null object kind of lags behind and then goes past and then ends first. It's not lining up. So the reason for that is, remember earlier when we set the interpolation to linear? Well, we need to do that again. But first, let's just go ahead and animate all these on so we can do all that at once. So, okay, so frame 90, set position to 0, keyframe, (139), 100. Okay, so 140, position 0. (219), 100. Okay, 220, 0. Set a keyframe. 320, or 319, I'm sorry. 100. 320, we want it to be 0%. and 400, 100%, and keyframe. So it kind of lags behind each one here. So to fix that, change our layout over to animation and select align to spline and select all of our keyframes and make sure you put it on linear. Okay, change back over to standard, and we're still going to have an issue, you'll find. So if I hit play, it's still going to lag behind and speed up. Okay, the reason for that is if you click on our number one spline, you're going to have to do this to each one. The intermediate points is set to adaptive. That actually needs to be set to uniform. So select the remaining your remaining splines and change the intermediate points to uniform, and that should fix our problem of the null not staying up with our path. Okay, so now it stays at the very end of our path, and it's at the beginning. Okay, so you know what happens from there. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is create our laser beam. So a laser beam is a light. So create a light. Alright, and just move it up here. Okay, the light needs to be, the type of light is a parallel spot. Okay, parallel spot. Okay, we don't want a shadow. Visible light, we need to change that to visible. When it renders, we want to see it. Okay, and we don't want it to illuminate our scene, so no illumination. Okay, now rotate it 90 degrees, negative 90 degrees. Okay, there we have it, our laser beam. It looks fantastic. Okay, now we need to change a few other properties in our light. We don't want to diffuse, so just deselect it. Okay, so now go over to our details tab, and we're going to change the inner radius. We're going to change that to 3, outer radius 6, and if we go over to our visibility tab, we need to change the fall off to 0, and edge fall off, change that to 70. Inner distance, change that to 25 centimeters. And let's see here. You'll notice our outer distance is at 500. That's just how long the beam. Oops. So the outer distance is how long the beam, how long it is. So there we have that. So to kind of get a color for a laser beam, right now if we render it, I'm just going to do a region render. It's not too bad. It's just white. So say we want kind of a gradient, like a blue laser, bluish laser. If we go over down under visibility, select use gradient. Okay, and we're going to start from white, and we're going to go to kind of a light blue. That looks good there. And we want a little more blue, so I'm going to drag the blue end down here. Okay, so now if we render it, okay. You know what, I'm going to give our scene just a little bit of light so it's easier to see. Just create a little omni light. Off in the distance there. Okay. And I'm going to turn on shadows. Alright. So, our laser beam, let's just go ahead and name that laser so it's easy to understand. Okay. Whoa. Alright. Okay, I messed up the view, so we need to frame default. I don't know why Cinema does that, but sometimes when you move around it rotates funny. So okay, I'm gonna move the laser kind of up and kind of out of the screen a little bit, and then we're gonna take our outer distance and pull that down. So if we render it now, we got kind of a nice little beam coming down here. Alright, so we want to animate this laser following our null object. So to do that, we're going to add a target expression to our laser. So right click, Cinema 4D, target. Alright, and what do we want to target? We want to target our null object. So just drag that in. Okay. And I'm going to rename the null object to just laser tip. So now if we hit play, you'll see that it follows it around. But we have another problem. See our end, we want the end to actually match the distance to where it is, and you'll obviously in the center it's going to be a shorter distance, but out here when our laser is pointing all the way to our last E, we have a longer distance here. So we want that distance to change depending on where it is. So to do that, let's see here. Okay, we need to add a little bit of espresso. So we're going to add an espresso tag to our laser. So right click, Cinema 4D tags espresso. Alright, here we go, espresso editor. I'm going to name this light to just scene light. Okay, so to do this, just drag in your laser. Okay, there we have it. Alright. Then on the blue, we got this little blue input here. We need to go, if you just click on it, it pulls up this menu. If you go down to visibility, we want to change the VL outer distance. That was that same value that I was changing earlier to change how far the beam goes. So that's what we want. So to make this work, I'm going to drag in another laser. Okay, and on the red, I'm going to pull that down. I'm going to go to coordinates, global position. Okay, and then I want to drag in my laser tip. So laser tip. Okay, on the red, again, same thing. We want a global position. So click it, coordinates, global position, global position. Alright. And then, let's see here. Move these here. We want a new node. So if you just right click in here, go to new node, espresso, calculate. We want to calculate the distance. So the position of the laser and the laser tip, calculating the distance, and we're going to output that to our outer distance. So all you have to do is connect these up. Global position on our laser tip to input 1, our laser global position input 2, and output of our distance node to the input of the laser outer distance, and that's it. You can actually go ahead and just close that out, and now you'll notice if we just hit play, it always stays at the very tip of our etch, of our etching animation. So stays at the tip. Alright, so now next, okay, so in my animation also you noticed that there was a kind of a bright tip, actual lighted tip on the end of this, and it kind of flickered just to kind of give it a little bit of effect. So to do that, just add in a new light. Okay, and we need to make this a child of our laser tip, because it's going to follow that around. Actually, before we do that, I'm sorry, just change our keyframe to 0. We want to put this light, position it right with our laser tip here. Okay, so we're just going to move it down and down. And I'm going to turn on snapping. So if we tear this off, enable snapping 3D, we want point snapping. And if I just move this over, it should snap to our tip. Or not. Wait. Oh. Let's just do axis snapping. There, axis snapping, my bad. Okay, you can close that out and turn off snapping. Alright, so right now it's just going to be a bright light. So we need to change how our laser looks. Okay, so first make this light, the light tip, a child of the laser tip null object. Okay, and we want it to be kind of an orange, so just change it to an orange color. Alright. Okay, so we want the visible light, we want that to be visible. I don't want to illuminate, and details, I don't think. Actually, okay, visibility, we want to change the outer distance, just make it real small, and let's see how that looks. Okay. Just make it a little bigger. Okay, so we got kind of a end beam, kind of a bright light here. That's cool. Okay, so as this moves around, we want it to kind of flicker a little bit. So to do that, we're going to do some more espresso. So over here on our light, laser tip light, right click, Cinema 4D tags espresso. Okay. To do this, just drag in your light. Okay, and on the blue input, we need to change we need to add general intensity. That's what we're going to be affecting here. So over in our light, over here under the general, the intensity is the brightness. So we're going to be affecting the brightness. So all we have to do to make this flicker is create a new node, Espresso. Let's see. General noise. Just give it a little bit of noise. Okay, and hook that up. And if you click on here on each one of these, it changes the attributes of each one. So if you click on noise, we want our noise type to be fractal brown movement. We want it to be positive only. Only want it to be brighter. Okay. Let's see. Octaves. Change that to 10. Change the scale to 2. Change frequency to 5. And change the amplitude to 3. Don't ask. I got these memorized. Actually, I have it written down, so I'm cheating a little bit. I'm sorry. Okay. Those are the values we want to use. So, if we hit play, you can kind of not see it, but as it moves around, see this here, this inner crosshair. It kind of changes from an orange to a yellow now, and now it's orange. Yep. So it just kind of varies. So if we render this right here, it's sort of bright, but now if we render it now, it should be even brighter, a little bit brighter. You can see when you actually animate it. So, all right, moving on. Okay, now, so we have our scene set up here. We pretty much got it so it laser etches on, and when you set up your view, make sure that the top of the laser is not showing. It's just kind of coming from the top of the screen. So there we have it. All right. Okay, so basically we're going to export this into After Effects. And to do that, you need to make sure that you install the Cinema 4D plugin into the After Effects Adobe After Effects library. So just to show you quick, if we minimize this, if we navigate to our Cinema 4D directory, applications, let's see, Maxon, Cinema 4D, Exchange plugins, After Effects, Exporter, OS X. I have CS 5.5, so you'll notice that we have a zip file. If you unzip it, it gives us our plugin, actual plugin. So all you have to do is drag this plugin into the directory of our After Effects. So I also noticed there was an importer plugin, the same thing. Go ahead and do that with this one as well. So unzip it and just grab both those plugins and copy them over into our After Effects plugin folder, which is on a Mac. If you have a Mac, Macs are way better, by the way. If you don't have a Mac, get one. They're better, okay? Anyway, you can argue with me all day, but I'll win. That's just the way it is. So, okay, so if we go into our After Effects folder, we have a plugin directory, plugins. That's where you copy those. You can see I already have done that. So, they're right there. You have to do this, okay? So, if we come back into Cinema, And oh, one thing I forgot, on this light, um, we need to have it illuminate. So uncheck no illumination, because if we do that, if we don't have illumination, then After Effects won't know to use that as a emitter type. So we need to leave that unchecked. Okay, and then we're going to name that laser tip. Oh yeah, okay, and then I remembered on, see when we animate this all out, just go to the last frame here, it leaves behind our texture, and if we render this, you can see the gradients. Well, let's see. Oh yes. Okay, so cycle was selected, and when you hit render, you can see that you can see the gradients. What we needed to do was unselect cycle and the luminance. So if you go to luminance and then gradient, if you unselect cycle, so then okay, so when it animates this D on, you see it, and when it gets to here, okay, you still see it. Let me make sure. Okay, we need to animate the end. Let's see. So if we go to the texture tag and you click, okay, so it's from 89 to, let's just go to 98. This offset needs to go to, so it's gonna, anything past this point, so it's down here, it'll be hidden. So we'll just go to 20%, set a keyframe. So this next one, the number 2 texture, so 139, it's already got a keyframe. We'll just do, okay, 139 should be at 0, and we'll just do 150, we'll do 20%. Okay, same for this one here. Number 3 should be at 0 when it starts, and when it ends should be at 20, or let me see, I'll start it at 0, leave it at 0. Right here it should be at 20%. We just want it to go past a little bit, so okay, that one's at 20. Okay, I apologize for this. Oh, okay, didn't have the right one selected. Okay, just bear with me while I fix this. 0, 2, 0, there, 20%. So when number 5 starts, be at 0, and it goes around. Yeah, actually this one will be a little further. Well, that's not going to work. Just be a 0. Okay, the last one's, we'll just have to change the number of keyframes to 420. And then move this over 20%. There. Okay, so now that it's all rendered on, oops. Alright. I need to undo my view change here. View, undo view. Okay. So now if we render this, you won't see any of the gradients. And also I want to change just my scene light so we don't have these shadows down here. So I'm just going to take my scene light and switch to a different viewport. Top. I'm just going to kind of move it over the top. Okay. So now when it renders, we won't have too crazy shadows. It's still got some, but yeah, I'm going to adjust it a little bit more. Okay, and I'm going to move my floor up. I'm not. It's alright where it is. Alright. I don't like the shadows. It just looks like it's... Okay, then I'm just going to move my scene light back to where it was. Okay. Alright. Okay, so that's what we got. Alright. Okay, and we want to animate this over into After Effects, bring it over into After Effects. So what we need to do is create a compositing file. So let's go ahead and set up our render settings here. Output, we're going to change to a film video preset. We're just going to do HD TV 720p 29.97, and then we're going to change frame range, all frames 0 to 420. Save, we want it to be a TIFF sequence, which is correct. Let's pull up our dialog here. We're just going to save it as laser. We'll go ahead and create a new folder on the desktop. Just name it laser. Create and laser. So basically we're going to have 420 different images named laser, laser 01, laser 02. We want alpha channel so that when it renders, you won't see the background here. Whatever's black, it'll be taken out. So okay, so under compositing project file, we want to save that, and as After Effects, we got some other options here, but we don't want to use any of those. So Obviously we were using After Effects, so and we also want to include the 3D data. Okay, so close that out and select our scene camera. Okay, so now if we render this out, it'll render out our full sequence with a compositing project file that we can then open in After Effects. So I'm going to go ahead and start this render, and I'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so we are all done rendering out all of our frames. So let's go ahead and take our data over into After Effects and create our sparks and our smoke. So we can close out of this and minimize cinema. And we're going to pull up After Effects. Okay, and to create our smoke and our sparks effects, I'm using a plugin for After Effects called Trapcode Particular. It's from Red Giant, and it does a phenomenal job creating particle emitters. It's so much better than Cinema 4D's particle system. So I would highly recommend Trapcode Particular for After Effects. So to get started, just go to After Effects, go to Open Project, and we're going to open, actually I'm sorry, just double click in the project window and to import a file, and we're going to import our laser.aec. It's the After Effects composition file. So go to Open. Okay, spin this down. Just double click the laser comp, and here we have it. It imported our camera, the scene light, the laser tip, and each frame is already animated. And then we have all of our frames, our sequence right there. So here it is. We don't need the scene light, so we can go ahead and get rid of that. We do need the laser tip. Okay, and the way Particular works is any light in your scene, you have to change the name to emitter. So we're going to change a laser tip to emitter, and it uses that to track where the emitter is. So wherever this light is, which we imported from Cinema, that's where it's going to emit particles. So that's why it makes it so much easier to create a comp file and do it in here. So to create our sparks, let's go up to Layer, New, Solid, and we're just going to name it Sparks. Okay, make comp size, it already is. Alright, and we're going to apply the particular effect. So go to Effect, Trapcode, Particular. Alright, so if we go into the emitter settings, the emitter type needs to be lights, and that right there will make it follow our light. See, you'll notice it already, if we play this back, it's emitting particles from our light that we imported from Cinema. So that's pretty awesome. So to create our sparks, I've got some settings, and I'll just go down the list here. Particles per second is going to be 200. Let's see. We want the direction to be bidirectional. Velocity, we're going to change that to 200. Velocity random, we're going to change that to 54. Velocity distribution to 1. Emitter size, for X, Y, and Z, we're going to change that to 10 for all three of these. Okay, and then we can minimize emitter. Particle life is going to be 1.5 seconds. Life random, we're going to change that to 22. Particle type is going to be a glow sphere. And our feather, we're going to change that to 46. We're going to change the size to 2. And this size over life, we can create a curve, and we want it to do something like this. So, and then you can hit the smooth button, it'll make it smooth for you. So that's what you want it to look like right there. We want it to start big and then go small right before its death. So okay, so opacity over life. Let's see. Opacity over life. The color. We're going to change that to FF8656. Kind of a peach color. And we want the transfer mode to be add. And then if we spin down the glow settings, because it's been turned on because we turned on glow sphere up here, we want size to be 0 and opacity to be 8. Okay, so now if we can minimize particle settings. If we go into the physics settings, we want the mode the physics model to be bounce, and gravity to 600. And if you take down the bounce settings, this is a problem since we didn't actually export from Cinema the floor, the piece of metal. This is going to be a little more difficult for the sparks to kind of have some bounce, but let's see what we can do here. Because for the floor layer, we could create another solid here and use that as a floor layer, and the sparks would bounce off of it, but we're not going to be able to do that. So let's see if this will work. Change the floor mode to layer size, collision event to kill, and let's see, we got to spin down the auxiliary system, which is the sparks after it's hit an object, and then the sparks that it creates from hitting something. We want the emit to be at bounce event, and then I'll turn the bounce here on, and we want the bounce up here to be 56. The slide, we want that to be 40. Okay, and we're done with the physics settings. So under auxiliary, we want the probability to be 20. We want velocity to be 168. Size we want to be 1.5. Okay, the size over life, we just want a linear curve down, so that's what we want it to look like, size over life. And then opacity over life, yeah, we want it to just be a solid, just like this, so that one's good. Color over life, we want this to be actually just a solid red, so just delete these swatches just like that. So okay, and I don't know what just happened, but okay. Okay, color from main, we want this to be 100. Gravity, we want that to be 600 again. And transfer mode, we want add. Control from main particles. Inherent velocity, we want this to be 100. Okay, and under the visibility settings, let's see here, obscure, the obscuration layer needs to be the floor, but we don't have a floor. Or I'm sorry, also obscure with, oh, never mind. We just need to change also obscure with, just change that to floor. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but let's just go ahead and try to add a floor in. I don't think it's going to work very well, but if we go to layer, new, solid, and just name it floor, and then we need to make it a 3D layer. So if we click on this little end box here, we just need to orient it the right way. So if we rotate the X, oops, I'm just going to kind of match the other floor we're using here. Let's see. Scale, we're just going to scale it up and scale it this way. And we need to change our view to, or the active camera to custom view 1. We can kind of, and then change the views to 4 views. Yeah, this isn't going to work very well. Well, let's see what we've got here. We're just going to move the floor down below the emitter. So, and then hide the floor. Change this view back to 1 view, active camera. And then if we play this back, we can kind of see some sparks here, but we also need to change some more settings. So click on your sparks and go to the effects tab, and under rendering, we need to turn on some motion blur. So spin that down and change this to on, motion blur on. Okay, the shutter angle, change that to 720. The type needs to be subframe sample, and levels, we're going to change that to 17. And opacity boost, change that to 25. So there we got some better looking sparks here. With our floor, it's really hard to judge because we didn't import that in, so I can't quite say how the depth where it needs to be. But Yeah, let's see here. Actually, if we go back to our physics for the sparks, the floor layer, change that to floor. Okay, here we go. Now our floor, turn that back on. If we pull this down a bit, you can kind of see where they're colliding. Okay, hide that. Yeah, that's a lot of sparks. Anyway, but you get the idea. Okay, for smoke, we're just gonna move on. For smoke, create a new solid and name it smoke. All right, and do the same thing. Effect, trap code, particular. Okay, the emitter, make sure that is set to light so that it follows our light around. All right, just like that. Okay. All right, for some settings, this one's a little easier. Particles per second, change that to 200. Velocity, 81. Okay, we're done there. Particle, change the life to 1. Life random to 100. We want the particle type to be a cloudlet. And the size needs to be 19. Size random, we want that to be 63. Size over life, we want kind of a bell curve here. They already have a preset one in here. It's this one here, so it looks just like this. That's what we want the size over life to be. Then opacity, we want the opacity to be 1.5. And we can just, we're done with particle. Shading, shadowlet from main needs to be on. And we're done there. Physics, air, we want the air resistance to be 3. So there, that kind of gives us some sparks. So if I rendered a little snippet of this, probably have way too many sparks, but you can turn the amount down. So, but it gives you an idea. It gives you something to start with anyway. But that's kind of the effect we're going after right there. Tons of sparks, tons of smoke. You got it. So with that, I think that's about all I wanted to show you today. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. Alright guys, well thanks a lot. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. See you around. Bye.